संसारदावा नललिडलोका त्रनायकाघनघनात्वा प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणानवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दा प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणानवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दा महाप्रभु कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वादित्य माध्यान मनसो रसेना रोमांचकाम्पा शुतरंग भाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दा रोमांचकम्पा शुतरंग भाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दा श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनाम्ना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमजनादो उक्तस्य भक्तां सनयुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दा चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसाद स्वादन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्त संगा चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत् प्रसाद स्वादन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्त संगा कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दा भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना माधुर्यलीला श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना प्रतीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् प्रतीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम् निकुञ्जयो नो रतिकेलिसेध्यै यायालिभेयोक्तिरपेक्षणीया
निकुञ्जयो नो रतिकेलिसेध्यै यायालिभेयोक्तिरपेक्षणीया
तत्रातिदक्षात् अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
तत्रातिदक्षात् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
तत्रातिदक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा वा यत एव सद्वे
साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा वा यत एव सद्वे
किन्तु प्रभोर्या प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
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 यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादा न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि
ध्यायं स्तुवांस्तस्य यस्य श्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
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 Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadhi Paschatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadhi Paschatya Deshatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Hariharaya Nama
Krishna Yadavaya Namaha.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama.
Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana.
Gopal Govindara Sri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinata Madhana Mohana.
Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana.
Gopal Govindara Sri Madhusudana Giridhari Gopinata Madhana Mohana.
Shri Rup Shri Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha.
Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha.
Hariharaya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama, Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Oh Jaya Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Shri Radhe.
Jaya Radha Nila Madhav, Radha Nila Madhav Radhe.
Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Jagannatha, Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Devi.
Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra.
Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paribrajacharya Ashtotara Shata His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paribrajacharya Ashtotara Shata His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की श्री क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा मैया की जमुना मैया की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की युग धर्म हरिनाम संकीर्तन महायज्ञ की बृहद मृदंग ट्रांसडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की ऑल ग्लोरीज टू द assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, and all glories to you, Srila Prabhupada.
You want to sing inclusive?
Namaste Narashinhaya.
Namaste Narasingaya.
Prahaladaladaine.
Prahaladaladaine.
Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Shilatankana Kalaye.
Jaya Shilatankana Kalaye.
Ito na singha barato na singha.
Ito nisingha parato nisingha.
Yato yato yamitato na singha.
Jato jato jamitato nisingha.
Bahir na singha ridahe na singha.
Baye nisingha hridaye nisingha.
Narsingha Madim Sharanam Prapadye.
Narasingha Madim Saranam Prapade.
Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Advuta Shingham Dalita Hiranyakashipu Ganorengam Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare
Abakara Kamalavare Nakam Adabhuta Singha Dalita Hiranyakashipu Danavinda Keshavadita Nararupa Jai Jagadisha
Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Narasimha Dev, Jaya Narasimha Dev, Narasimha Dev, Jaya Narasimha Dev.
Jaya Narasimha Dev, Narasimha Dev, Jaya Narasimha Dev, Jaya Narasimha Dev.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Prahlad Nara, Prahlad Nara, Prahlad Nara, Jaya Prahlad Nara.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol,
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol,
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai,
Jai.
Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi
Hari 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 Bol. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Debai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi ki jai.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Eya Bhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Heya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pabo Eya Bhilashi
Radha Krishna Sharanala Talvancha Purna
Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavan Vasi
Tumi Kripa Kori Kara Tare Vrindavan Vasi
Morae Abhilash Vilas Kunj Diyo Vas
Morae Avila Vilas Kunje Diyava
Nayane Haribo Sada Yugal Ruparasi
Aminayane Riva Sada Jugaluparasi
Nivedana Dharo Sakiranu Gata Koro
Eni Vedana Dhara Sakiranu Gata Kara
Sevadhikara Diye Koro Nijadasi
Sevayadi Kara Diye Kara Nijadasi
Dina Krishna Dase Koe Namora Hoe
Dina Krishna Das Paul Eye Namora
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Bhasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo
Yani Kani Chapa Pani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradikshana Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahma Tari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranachanti Pradachina Pare Pare
Yani Kani Chapa Pani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradikshana Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahma Tari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranachanti Pradachina Pare Pare
Yani Kani Chapa Pani Brahma Hatyadikani Cha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradikshana Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahma Tari Kani Sa Tani Tani Pranachanti Pradachina Pare Pare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की
जय। श्री वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादिदेवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादिदेवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रादिदेवी सतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय। O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always fame and love Shri Radha and Govinda. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanam Arjanam Baba Mahada Bhagni Vapanam Shri Akari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Patipadam Purnamrata Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Paramparam Jayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smarane Nakala Etadrusi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idishamya Jani Nanuraga Trinada Pishani Chaina Tarorapi Saishnuna Amani Namana Dena Kitaniya Sada Hari Radhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahaitu Kitve Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Visame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tavapar Pankaja Sthita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galavara Shodharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudhaya Gira Pulakai Richitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakrusha Prarusa Itam Sunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virayenami Asli Savapadaratam Pinashtumam Adarshanan Marma Hatam Karotuva Jatha Tathava Vidadhatulam Patu Matprana Tastu Sa Evana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurati Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Shmada Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavari Pasatari Satarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart with the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire condition of life for the period of birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lord on strolling the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause that devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotee whose dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods of Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures on pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person by the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prem. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaevacha paritanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Shri Guru Vandana Mangala Charan ki jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-salakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shrapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swaparantikam Bandhyam Shri Guru Shri Jyotaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhambitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravane Pracharine Nibrishesha Sunnavadi Pachatya Dishatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhanu Videvi Daitaya Kripabudhaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dahine Prabhave Namaha Madhur Jojala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravane Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudhapo Siddhanta Dvantaharine Namagora Kishoraya Sakchavera Gyamurtaye Vipralambhara Sambhode Parabhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sakchit Anandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Virbhava Vamiswam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Sri Jagannatayate Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnayo Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishe Namaha Panchatattamakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataro Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanto Radha Kanto Namostute Jayatam Surata Pangor Mama Mandamatir Gati Masarvasya Param Bhojo Radha Madanamohano Divyavindaranya Kalpadumadha Shmaranagara Singhasanastu Shmaradha Shra Govinda Devo Prishtalivi Sivaman Shmarami Shmara Sarasarambi Vamshivata
Tatastita Kasan Venus Swaner Gopir Gopinath Stuna Tapti Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samiti Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Riksha Laksha Videsha Surabi Rabi Baliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Konandam Aravinda Dalaitaksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shyamam Tribanga Lalita Nita Prakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakilendriya Rittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Chaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujwala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampagam Yova Yora Tapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prabhadasimya Vichintya Tatre Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagaranda Kotim Yaschakti Rasti Chagaranda Chayayadanta Antarasta Paraman Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayan Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistavanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavita Bistabirya Eva Nicharupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivisata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Devi Desa Vilokante Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menitista Nana Avatana Makarobu Vunesukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Panamam Pumam Yo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Kotisva Sesa Vasudadi Vibhuti Bina Tad Brahman Niskalamanantam Sesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigunya Tad Visaya Vida Vitayamanam Sattvavulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Yapraninam Pratifilam Sonatam Petyam Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajastram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talechatasha Devi Maheswari Tamas Tesu Tesu Tete Prabhavani Chaya Vitasena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shistista Tepalaya Sada Vasakti Reka Chayevi Asya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasa Jitesta Tesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Kshiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakaste Hetu Yasambhutama Pitata Samabhaitika Yat Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Vidisantaram Abhyapeta Dipayate Vivitayatu Samanu Dharma Yastadake Vicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidrama Nanta Jagadanda Saroma Kuba Adhara Sakti Mavalamya Parasamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kala Visheshu Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesha Nijesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakataya Patitadvatat Brahmaya Isha Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidai Kumbadwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Varuti Sascha Kalas Tatatramana Siti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Ansha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sagalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Desesa Teja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapam Si Brahma Dikita Patagavati Jiva Yadata Matu Prakatapa Bhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopamata Vendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhana Rupa Falabhajan Matanoti Karmani Nidhati Kinchila Bhakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kama Sajapana Adibiti Vatsaya Moha Guru Goro Vasevi Bhavai Sanchinti Tasya Sadvisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purisha Kalpatara Vajamabu Mishtintamani Ganama Yitrayam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki Shirinandam Jyoti Parama Pitada Swatyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Swabidi Shirabi Byashta Suman Nimesar Dakyava Vajitina Hiya Triprisamaya Brajis Vita Dipam Tamam Iha Golokamitiam Vedanta Stasan Takshati Virachara Katipaye Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence out of my respectful basis unto lotus feet. Is such spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body and tears flow from his eyes like wave. I offer my respectable base unto lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engaged his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful base unto lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is liquid, junk, and stuff. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful base unto lotus feet of such spiritual spiritual masters. Spiritual masters always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited cosmical past and Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance to Lotus Street as such spiritual master. Spiritual master very dear because he's expert at assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such spiritual master. Spiritual master to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scripture and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such spiritual master as a bona fide representative. Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, verse number 13. Sashadadanasya vivardamana viraktiman yatra karoti pumsa Hare padanusmriti nivritasya samasta dukha pyayam asudate. Sa, those topics of Krishna, or Krishna Kata, Shraddhadanasya, of one who is anxious to hear, Vivardamana, gradually increasing, Viraktim, indifference, Anyatra, in other things than such topics, Karoti, does, Pumsa, of one who is so engaged, Hare, of the Lord, Pada Anusmriti, constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord, Nivritasya, one who has achieved such transcendental bliss, Samasta Dukkha, all miseries, Apyayam, vanquished, Asu, without delay, Date, executes. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord, Krishna, by the devotee, who has achieved transcendental bliss, vanquishes all his miseries without delay. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We must certainly know that on the absolute plane, Krishna Katha and Krishna are one and the same. The Lord is the absolute truth, and therefore His name, form, quality, etc., which are all understood to be Krishna Katha, are non-different from Him. Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Lord, is as good as the Lord Himself. When a sincere devotee reads Bhagavad Gita, this is as good as seeing the Lord face to face in His personal presence. But this is not so for the mundane wrangler. All the potencies of the Lord are there when one reads Bhagavad Gita, provided it is read in the way recommended in the Gita by the Lord Himself. One cannot foolishly manufacture an interpretation of Bhagavad Gita and still bring about transcendental benefit. Anyone who tries to squeeze some artificial meaning or interpretation from the Bhagavad Gita for an ulterior motive is not Shraddhadana Pumsa, one engaged anxiously in bona fide hearing of Krishna Katha. Such a person cannot derive any benefit from reading Bhagavad Gita, however great a scholar he may be in the estimation of a layman. The Shraddhadana, or faithful devotee, can actually derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita because by the omnipotency of the Lord he achieves the transcendental bliss which vanquishes attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. Only the devotee, by his factual experience, can understand the import of this verse spoken by Vidura. The pure devotee of the Lord enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, by hearing Krishna Katha. For such a devotee, there is no such thing as material existence, and the much advertised bliss of Brahmananda is like a fig for the devotee who is in the midst of the transcendental ocean of bliss. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatila Satarn. So here we see the factual truth that separates a devotee, a real devotee, from someone who is not convinced to completely surrender to the Lord. The real devotee will always hear Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by genuine devotees and ask questions and discuss the different points that are being made every day in depth as much as possible. That gives the devotee enthusiasm to hear and great anticipation and expectation of attending the full class and hearing very carefully and learning more and more day after day of all these transcendental realizations that Srila Prabhupada is putting in his purports. And therefore it says, for one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. So this is a very important sentence, and we should meditate on this very carefully. The ability to have an anxious, let's say, desire to engage constantly in hearing such topics. What are those topics? The topic is Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. Then Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards other things. So indifference towards other things is absolutely important, because materialists are very enthusiastic about sense gratification and making money and finding new victims for their sense gratificatory control and enjoyment. But that's not, day by day, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, one loses that type of mentality and develops this eagerness and highly inspired, let's say, enthusiasm to hear more and more. And the more that one hears, the more one loses interest in the mundane world and all its mundane issues. So every day, the mundane issues are broadcast in the news. But we should be more interested in the transcendental issues of Krishna's pastimes and not be at all interested in these mundane issues. Every day there's something or other that preoccupies the attention of people. So such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without a delay. Well, what is he talking about? Who has achieved transcendental bliss? Vishaya vinivaratante narahara. This is an important verse in the second chapter. Vishaya vinivaratante. One second, let me find it. So, that verse says basically that when one develops a higher taste, what is that higher taste? It's that transcendental joy of hearing the Krishna Katha. Then they give up the lower taste of mundane Katha and completely bathe or completely immerse themselves in the ecstasy of the transcendental Katha. So, what's that? Yeah. Vishaya vinivartante nirharasya dehinam rasavarjam rasapyapi. Then the last line is that the experience of the joy of hearing this transcendental knowledge. Nirharasya dehina. So, when we get this experience of joy, then we become Krishna conscious. And that can only happen when we're completely dedicated to hearing on a regular basis. So you said second chapter, 49th verse? No. Yeah, 59th verse, yeah. So we're going to read some of the purport to that because it's very important. So it says, Param dristva nivartate, that is, param means supreme, dristva nivartate means dristva is experiencing, and nivartate, he gets this, he ceases engagement in mundane objects and mundane topics by experiencing this higher taste. And that higher taste is based on the joy that they feel, the transcendental joy. So unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Astanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, etc., well, etc. is samadhi, is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge, but one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. So there it is. That taste is further explained in the purport today, where it says, the Shraddhadana, or faithful devotee, can actually derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita because by the omnipotency of the Lord he achieves the transcendental bliss which vanquishes attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. Until we experience that transcendental bliss, we'll still be a prisoner of Maya. But once we experience this transcendental bliss, which vanquishes attachment to what? To material sense gratification, and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. Miseries are birth, death, old age, and disease. Only the devotee, by his factual experience, can understand the import, meaning the real meaning, of this verse spoken by Vidura. The pure devotee of the Lord enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing Krishna Katha. So the impure devotee or the non-devotees, they enjoy life by constantly remembering nonsense things that they've done and all their little conquests of innocent people. But the devotee enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing Krishna Katha. So, when a person is materially successful by crushing other people or other movements or other politicians or whatever, they remember those victorious moments of crushing others, and that gives them joy. But the devotee gets joy by remembering all the Krishna Katha that they've heard and all the service that they've done. Not to crush anyone, but service to help people become Krishna conscious. So, the pure devotee Lord enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing Krishna Katha. For such a devotee, there's no such thing as material existence, and the much advertised bliss of Brahmananda, in other words, the realization of Mayavadi is that by merging into the oneness of the Brahman, is like a fig for the devotee who is in the midst of the transcendental ocean of bliss. So, how do you get in the midst of the transcendental ocean of bliss? It's by regularly hearing Krishna Katha and engaging in devotional service and associating with devotees who are like-minded, not interested in material sense gratification, but only interested in hearing and relishing Krishna's transcendental pastimes. So this is a very important statement made here by Prabhupada, and it should be the guide for us, the path for us that we should traverse in order to get that transcendental bliss, that experience of transcendental bliss. Now the opposite of that is explained. Nate vidu swartgatim hi vishnum durasaya ye bahir artamanina andayatandar upaniyamanas tepisa tantriyam urudam nibadha. This is the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto, 5th chapter, 31st verse. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life. See, the devotee is enjoying spiritual messages that are coming from the transcendental Vedas, especially Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, all about Krishna. That's what he is deriving enjoyment from. But on the other hand, persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, right? And who have therefore accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects, cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. No, people want to stay in this world and continue enjoying sense gratification and dominating material nature and dominating people and using them for their sense gratification. See? They don't want to leave this world. But the devotee is more interested in experiencing the transcendental bliss that's in the spiritual world. But he or she can experience that right now, even in the body, even in the material world, by losing their attraction to sense gratification and every day bolstering their attraction to Krishna Katha. Because Krishna Katha and Krishna are non-different. Just like the holy name, Hare Krishna, and mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is non-different from Krishna. So it says, who have accepted as their leader or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects. Such persons cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men, guided by other blind men, miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men, led by another materially attached man, are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and therefore continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. This is a very important verse, has a very important purport, and basically it's telling us don't be a fool and remain in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease by cultivating ignorance. And ignorance is modern education. It's not education. It's ignorance posing as education. And people think, oh, I must have this to get a good job and make money and have all the sense gratification I want. No, it's a way of immersing oneself deeper into the filthy ocean of material attachment. And people will never get out of it unless they develop this taste for hearing bona fide knowledge from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam from Krishna. Okay, so besides that, there are other important messages in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it says, Mat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes, tamo dwaram yositam sangi sangam, mahantas te samachitta prasanta, viman yava surida sadhavo ye. So this verse says, one can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger, and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in an abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. Well, this is from the 5th canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse. This is a huge verse, especially when it says, Mahat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes. Dwara means the door. So the Mahat sevam, service to the spiritually advanced persons, called Mahatmas, opens the door to liberation. But tamo dwaram yositam sangi sangam. But on the other hand, if you want to go to hell, you associate with tamo dwaram, the door of the dungeon of dark hellish condition of life opens up when you associate with people who are attached to women and sex, and they have no real spiritual understanding. All they know is how to manipulate the material energy for sense gratification. So we have two doors, one that goes to hell and one that goes back to Godhead. You go back to Godhead in the association of Mahatmas, and you go to hell in the association of Duratmas. There's Mahatmas, Duratma. Okay, so for those who are not interested in such activities, meaning Krishna conscious activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. That's how you can recognize a Mahatma. They are devoid of anger, and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in an abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. So we should be very eager to always be in association with Mahatmas. The Supreme Mahatma closest to us is Srila Prabhupada. He was only interested in helping everyone become Krishna conscious, and he risked everything his life, his well-being, his peace of mind, everything, in order to spread Krishna consciousness. That's what happens when you have a completely pure heart with only the desire to spread the glories of Krishna consciousness by Krishna Katha. Okay, so then in the also in the Bhagavad Gita, it says in the 9th chapter, Mahatmanas tamam partha daivim pakritim asritaha prajanti ananya manaso gatva bhutadam avyayam. So let's see what that verse says. Verse number 9 to 13. O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, that means the Mahatmas, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. In other words, they know Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, when there is a Mahatma, it's a person who is being protected by Krishna. And why? Because he or she is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, knowing well that Krishna is the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, in this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. In other words, he doesn't deviate from activity in Krishna consciousness. He's always engaged in devotional service. Hearing, what is devotional service? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam. Dasyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. So that means that, number one, the devotee is always hearing classes given by bona fide devotees and repeating what he hears. And so that's Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu, and the topic is Krishna or Vishnu. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. And because they're hearing and repeating, they are able to remember what was heard and what was repeated. So Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam. And they follow the example of pure devotees who are always serving the lotus feet of the Lord. And then Vandanam, Archanam Vandanam, and that means they are engaged in worshiping the deity, Archanam Vandanam. They're always offering choice prayers to the Lord. And Archanam Vandanam Sakyam, they make friendship with the Lord, and they are, and then surrendering everything to the Lord. So these are different types of devotional service that the devotee engages in. So Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, they're a servant of the Lord. Sakyam, they're a friend of the Lord. Atmanivedanam, and they offer everything to the Lord. So when one engages in devotional service like this, and this is the example of a genuine Mahatma, he is not under the control of material nature. You cannot be a real preacher if you're still controlled by some aspect or all aspects of the material nature. And how is this affected? How does this happen? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. Yes, so Daivihi esa gunamayi mamavaya duradyaya mam eviye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. So it is the first two lines of that verse, 7th chapter, 14th verse, says that it's impossible to overcome the material nature. Absolutely impossible to overcome birth, death, old age, and disease. But yet it becomes possible and easy if one surrenders to Krishna. So that is the solution to all problems of life. Just like all of Arjuna's problems went away when he surrendered to Krishna. Before he surrendered to Krishna, he was full of anxieties, problems, and problems that he had no solution for. But as soon as he surrendered, the solution was there. Just follow Krishna's instructions and engage in his devotional service. The Lord will protect you, even in the most dire and dangerous situations. And that's exactly what Arjuna did, and then he became successful. So real success is becoming Krishna conscious. It's not becoming rich or powerful or whatever. It's becoming engaged in devotional service without any material desires, and always hearing and glorifying Krishna. So he at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So, when one is promoted in that way by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of a great soul, or Mahatma. So this verse that we're just reading, 9:13, says, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. So what is that divine nature? The guidance of the spiritual nature, the guidance of following Krishna's instructions is Daivi Prakriti, or the divine nature. So we should very, very enthusiastically take up the divine nature, following Krishna's instructions. Then we become free from the influence of the material modes of nature, and at that point, it says, the Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There's no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma, or great soul, develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna in Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswerving service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so the preliminary formula, being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, or divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of a great devotee, or Mahatma. So here it is, the real formula for success. And this is exactly what Arjuna did. He was confused. He was not ready to follow Krishna's order, but he very wisely decided to surrender to Krishna and let him help Arjuna become free of all his misery and confusion, and ultimately become successful. Success means you become Krishna conscious without any material desires, only desires to please Krishna. Okay, so at that point, when one is freed from the grip of Maya, they begin to feel this joy and ecstasy. And that means that they are transcendentally situated. And that's what it says here. The Shraddhadana, or faithful devotee, can actually derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita, because by the omnipotency of the Lord he achieves the transcendental bliss, which vanquishes attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. So, when it says, because of the omnipotency of the Lord, well, omnipotency is actually a Latin word. It's made up omni and potency or potentia. So you put those two words together. They're both Latin words. It means that the Lord has unlimited powers, and because He has unlimited powers, what happens? If you surrender unto Him, He nullifies all material miseries for the devotee, and also He gives the devotee the opportunity to experience transcendental bliss in hearing about Him and engaging in His devotional service. Then the pure devotee of the Lord enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord by hearing Krishna Katha. For such a devotee, there's no such thing as material existence, and the much advertised bliss of Brahmananda is like a fig for the devotee who is in the midst of the transcendental ocean of bliss. This is an extremely important purport. It has very, let's say, important messages. But unless we get that param dristva nivartate, that transcendental taste of joy, joyfulness, and ecstatic feelings of love for Krishna, we will never be free from the cycle of birth and death. We'll never be free. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
So Maharaj, can you little bit elaborate on this? Like, the Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all things. What does that mean?
Indifference. Indifference means you're not interested anymore in sex, money, all those things. It doesn't mean you hate women or you don't try to earn any money. As long as you're married, you have to earn, right? You have to take care of your family. But you're not interested, you're no longer in the body-to-body relationship with people, which is based on sense gratification. You're in the spirit-to-spirit, or a soul-to-soul relationship, which means you understand that your wife actually belongs to Krishna. It doesn't belong to you. And you have to treat her as the child of Krishna, and not your or mine so-called person that I can exploit for a sense gratification, right? And your children, they're actually the children of Krishna, so you have to take care of them like that, right? If you think they're your own children, then you might not be so, let's say, protective. But if you understand, well, wait a minute, these are Krishna's children, I have to be even more careful. So you see the soul's relationship to Krishna in everything, your soul and other people's souls. And you see the presence of Krishna as Paramatma. Even if you don't see it with your eyes, you see it theoretically through the Shastric evidence. So in this way, you're always connected to Krishna, and you're not acting to exploit anyone or anything. You want to use or engage everything in Krishna's service. So it's a different vision, soul-to-soul vision, as opposed to body-to-body vision. Yeah. So you can still work and make money, but you'll spend the money mostly in pushing forward Krishna consciousness and living a simple life, not a complicated life. So you don't need huge amounts of money to support your whimsical or our whimsical desires for this object or that gadget or this thing or that thing. You live a minimalist life. You're satisfied with simple things, simple food, simple lifestyle, etc. Right? So you don't overcomplicate yourself. Every time you buy another gadget or another car or things like that, you have to maintain them, and then you get entangled by it, right? So it's better just to be satisfied with a few things, few good things. Someone who has a few really good things is satisfied. Someone who has many things is never satisfied, right? Because things start breaking down, and sometimes they're not as good as you thought they were, and something's going wrong all the time. But all you need is a few very good things, like very good first-class rotis, pure ghee, good vegetables, and making simple foods that are easy to digest and nourishing. Say, very good milk. So just a few things like that. That's it. You're done. You're not disturbed by anything. You have a very simple diet. You have a very simple lifestyle. You have simple clothing. That's it. Like, for example, let's say you wear a suit. Now, you can't put the suit in the washing machine. Can you? Can you put a suit? No. You got to take it to the dry cleaner, right? And they use chemicals to clean it. They don't put it in the washing machine either. They say, and it costs money. It could cost $20 or $30 to. So it's like complicated, like. But having a dhoti, you can wash the dhoti, and if the weather is dry, you just put it out on a string, and like half an hour it's dry. So it's very simple. This dress is very, very simple. Yeah, you don't even need a shirt. You just have a shawl for a shirt. And the Brahmanas, they don't wear shirts. So. And you don't need underwear. You just have a piece of cloth and a string, and that's it, right? You can wash that very quickly also, and dry it very quickly. So this dress also is a sign of simple living, right? And like I said, you don't need a shirt. You just need a shawl. So both of those, the dhoti and the cloth chadar can be washed by hand in a matter of minutes, and then dried in a matter of minutes also. Okay. So you see how everything, the clothing, and even the hat, the shoes, everything was very simple before. The house made of mud and gobar, very simple. Very cheap, right? So it wasn't complicated. And cooking, on the chula with cow dung. So you don't need propane or this thing or gasoline or oil or anything. Right? Everything was very simple, and because of that, people were happy, and they didn't have debts, and they grew their own food and had their fresh milk. Great way of living. We should all go back to that way of living. Okay, any other questions?
Just to add, Maharaj, I think the reason why we are not able to give up is because we are not getting the higher taste.
We haven't gotten that bliss yet. Yeah, but you just keep hearing. It'll happen. One day, boing. You're in ecstasy, But in that ecstasy, you don't go back to your wife and say, "Hey, I'm not going to work anymore. You're not going to do what Harivilas says. I'll just wear a dhoti and chant Hare Krishna and take it easy." No, that's when you really start working. That's when you really start working, because now you're going to depend completely on the mercy of Krishna. So we should not do such a thing whimsically. We have to be prepared for that. And the preparation, one preparation is continuing to maintain family and not put anybody in anxiety, right? Because how long are you going to be in the family? It's basically 25, 30 years. Everybody grows up and they disappear, right? So then it's just you and your wife, and then you and your wife, if you both have the same point of view about life, then you engage full time in Krishna consciousness and diminish all your material needs to very, very little, very, very basic things, and then your life becomes very simplified. Right. Okay. By the way, time goes by fast when you're engaged in Krishna consciousness. Yes.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, one devotee asked one question from yesterday's purport.
Yeah.
So there was a line at the end of the yesterday's purport. Vidura's reference to the Mahabharata indicates that he had heard of Mahabharata from Vyasadeva, his real father, while he was away from home and was touring the places of pilgrimage. So question is, what does it mean, his real father? Is it like referring to the spiritual master, or?
Well, no. Okay. Vyasadeva, right? He engendered those three girls. What were their names? Anyway, his mother asked him. He's born from Parasara Muni, and his mother, Satyavata Muni. Not Satyavata. The mother ordered him to procreate with these three girls, and he won their hand, and he had three sons, right? Pandu and Dhritarashtra. Huh? Vidura, yeah. So with the third girl, she was okay. What were their names? I forget now. Anyway, one of the girls was horrified by the vision of Vyasadeva. So, because of that, she closed her eyes, and I'll explain it tomorrow. But the father is Vyasadeva. Yeah. Okay. Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. That's the name of the girls. Amba. So Amba got horrified by Vyasadeva, and something happened. I have to go and look it up again. And so I'll explain it tomorrow. Yeah.
One more question, Maharaj. So Maharaj, as we discussed about Shravanam Kirtanam verse, Vishnu Smaranam. So how a neophyte can improve on Kirtanam, like repetition, like neophyte is trying to hear, but how a neophyte can improve on Kirtanam, like repetition?
Well, there's two ways. One is keep coming to class every day. So all these things are repeated all the time. And the other way is that you take notes and you study them and talk about them and try and discuss it with other people. So the more you discuss something, the more you have more chance of remembering it. If you just hear it once, well, you're going to forget it. But if you write it down and then purposely talk about it, and the more you talk about it, the easier it is to remember it for the rest of your life. If you don't talk about it, then you forget. And if you just come to class every day, all these things are going to be repeated over and over again. And every time it's repeated in different purports, you get deeper understanding of it. And just like, there's that verse, Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehina Rasarajam Rasapyasya Param Dristva Nivartate. Well, I mean, now we see what it's talking about when it says here, the Shraddhadana, or faithful devotee, can actually derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita, because by the omnipotency of the Lord he achieves the transcendental bliss which vanquishes attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. So that's what's meant by param dristva nivartate. It gets a higher taste. What is that higher taste? The bliss, this transcendental bliss. And once you taste that transcendental bliss, what does it do? It vanquishes, it diminishes, it eliminates material attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries, all the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. So this one line in the 3rd canto, 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita gives you a deeper understanding of param dristva nivartate, this higher taste that one gets. Unless you get that higher taste, you cannot give up the lower taste, which is sense gratification. Okay, so if you have $1 million, that's more than $10, right? So if you lose $10, but you have $1 million, it doesn't bother you. But if you have only $10 and you lose it, it really bothers you. You say. So the more Krishna Katha you have, the less you're affected by material issues, which are always disturbing people who who are bankrupt spiritually. When you're bankrupt spiritually, you're disturbed all the time. When you have a big stock of spiritual, let's say, bliss, you're not disturbed because you have such a great thing. The material miseries seem insignificant. But if you only have, you don't have any Krishna consciousness, then the slightest little thing is disturbing. So we should build up a huge stock of Krishna Katha. Then you will never be disturbed. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. And we should not be anxious. Krishna consciousness elevation is a slow process. Slow and steady. Brick by brick, step by step. Everybody wants, hurry curry. Instant bliss.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Bandhu Mohi Savadana Mate.
Bandhu Mohi Savadana Mate.
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Turiya Jai. Prasade कृष्ण प्राप्ति होय जाहोय दे
Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte De Goriya Gya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Goriya Agya
Arana Gori Ho Mani Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Sri Guru Charane Rati ऐसे उतमागति
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise
उतमागति जय प्रसादे पूरे सर्वा आशा
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudan Dilaje Janme Janme Prabhu Se
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudan Dilaje Janme Janme Prabhu Se
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
Prakasito
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jati
वेदे गाय जहाँ राचरितो
Rahadito
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदमा जनर बंधु
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदमा जनर बंधु
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
लोकना लोके राजीवाना
Lokera Jivana
प्रभु गुरु दोया देहो मोरे पादा छाया
Prabhu Kura Dvaya Deha More Pada Chaya
प्रभु गुरु दोया देहो मोरे पादा छाया
Prabhu Kura Dvaya Deha More Pada Chaya
ये बेजास गुसुक त्रिभुवना
Ebe As Sukhi Bhavana
श्रील प्रभुपाद पतिता पावना
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada
जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा
Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jai Gurudeva.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Nama Om
Vishnu Padaya
Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine.
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pasyadya Desadarine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Mama Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
Nitai Gaur Haribo, Haribo, Gaura Haribo, Nitai Gaur Haribo. Chayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa Parvajikachasta, Tarasatara Shishi, Shimadi's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Not the Kuti Vaishnavin Ki Jai. Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Swami Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samoveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Padaya Putri Shrimati Bhaktivinoda Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pachari Ne Nirvisesa Subhani Paskati. Feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which he can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor of reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic remains. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavan, Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Buddhi Namaste Saraswati Devi Nirvisesa Sunyavaya Paskati. Go ahead.